this is an outline. There's the title. David gave me a title, and then it was different from what I thought it was going to be, so I've morphed it a little bit. But I've included the things that he asked me about, the APS activities. And I'm also going to provide some motivation for the outreach activities. And this follows up on some stuff that Barbara was doing last night. And you'll see that it's interesting to hear everybody talk about what they've come to the table with, because we all end up having sort of the same background, the same information, and come to the same conclusions. And then I'll end up with the program that we have at the University of Minnesota, this bottom part, the physics course. So, what does it mean? All of us should work at engaging the public to enjoy, appreciate, and understand science and the scientific method. Right? I mean, that's come out from this, what we've heard. And that doesn't mean a lot of arithmetic, doesn't mean a lot of mathematics. And you'll see where this comes back up again later. And there's two reasons. One is you look at all the issues facing society today. They have to vote on nuclear power. They have to vote on global warming. These are things that the populace has to make a decision on. And this is what Laura had brought up. And this is, if you look, there's been a systematic effort to make sure that people cannot follow the scientific process and to appreciate it. We have been under fire for some time now. Merchants of Doubt is a book that gives you the history of this. It's an excellent read. It's maybe 250 pages, but you can skip most of it because most of it is the facts that back it up, the references to the information, where they got the information. If you just look at the overall picture of it, and it was created to create confusion by the tobacco industry. There is an organization that was formed at the beginning of the tobacco industry controversy over smoking. For those of y'all in condensed matter, Frederick Seitz was the guy that they hired to organize this thing and to run it.
I'm pointing at a one-woman battle to get his name off of the Materials Research Laboratory.
Anyway, so he's a condensed matter experimentalist like Laura and I are. And so they hired him to create this thing, and you know how effective he was at creating the confusion over the tobacco industry. Look how long it took to get regulations through. Because, okay, somebody had lung cancer that smoked, but somebody else had lung cancer that didn't smoke. So maybe smoking has nothing to do with it. And it's an amazing piece of work. Then they kept it in place to attack acid rain. They kept the organization in place to support SDI. They kept it in place, global warming, the ozone layer, it goes on. So this organization is still there. And what it does, it makes scientists look like we really don't know what we're doing. And this is something that's really come out since for 20 years now, 25 years. Great read. Keeping the controversy alive by spreading doubt and confusion after a scientific consensus has been reached. Okay. Now, that's a place where there's been a systematic effort at attacking science. But we interact with a very select group of people. If you just start hanging out at the bars and you see what the average person on the street believes, you'll be quite surprised. Now, this goes back to an older Gallup poll from 2001. There's an update of this, and I was going to grab it, and I forgot to get it. But it's about psychic healing and extrasensory perception. If you look at this, so 50% of the people out on the street believe that there's ESP or extrasensory perception. Okay? It goes down to houses can be haunted, 42%. We just go down this. The bottom one, telepathy or communication between minds without using the traditional five senses, 36 believe that. So I'm just going to quit talking. I want y'all to just read my mind for the rest of the presentation. Did you get that?
No.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Maybe there's a problem there. Okay. So this is what we're up against, right? For being able to make decisions on technical issues that are facing society.
I would love to know if this is something that would be interesting to do. Do the same survey in China and see how it turns out. I think it'd be fascinating to find that out.
David, you mean in the cities or in the villages?
Good question. That would be the...
Exactly.
Or
The next part, the second reason the advancement of science is important, I would say critical to our future, and we must be leaders to ensure our future, and this requires support. We have to have the financial support to be able to do this. This is something Bob Richardson told me about this years and years ago, and I got the APS to put together this graphic. This shows the investment in engineering and the physical sciences by the government as a percentage of the gross domestic product since 1970. And you can see that since 1970, we're at about half of what we used to be. Now this is not up to date, so this stopped in 2005, but I can assure you it's still been declining. The impact of this, science and engineering research doesn't automatically turn into products in a day or 2 days. This actually takes a long time to show the effect. This graphic shows the trade imbalance for advanced technology products. This shows the impact of that long-term neglect of science and engineering support. So back in about 2000, it turned negative for the first time. That means the high-tech products are being designed and built somewhere else. This is from Mike LaBelle. He sent me this about, 7 or 8 months ago. He's now giving talks on it. For a while it was sort of under the wraps. But this was a 2011 public opinion strategies. It was a Republican poll. The Greenberg, Quinlan, Rosner research, which is a Democrat poll, 50% of the interviews said that the federal science budget should be cut. To reduce the national deficit, we should cut. The number one thing in this survey was national defense, which I was really surprised at. But the number two thing was scientific research. Support for scientific research, we want to balance the budget, that's what we cut. Now let me come back to this. I visit the Hill, so I became a member of the executive board of the American Physical Society back in 2000 or something like that, 1999. And ever since then, I go to Washington, I talk to people once or twice a year. I use this graphic from a business model point of view, and I say that if we want to continue having the result of this research be part of our portfolio in the future, we need to reinvest. Let's think of it in terms of a company. I build a widget. If I want to continue making money off this widget, I need to invest money to keep improving it. If I decide that I'm not going to sell this widget for money anymore in, say, 10 years, I'm going to start cutting back how much money I invest in it. That's what we're doing with science and engineering research. Both sides of the aisle understand it. They agree with me. This last time I was in Washington, I didn't get to talk to any Tea Party members, and I had actually told them I wanted to talk to a couple of them just to see how they felt about this. But I didn't get to talk to them. But Republicans and Democrats both agree with this. They both understand that this needs to be stopped. They both would say, they always say, yes, we have to turn this around. Why doesn't it happen? Because the public says that we don't need to be doing this. So until the public understands what they gain out of the investment in science and engineering research, it's not going to turn around because it's not important. Okay. Now, Judy Franz decided that we need to be thinking about this on a bigger scale in the APS. And so she created an ad hoc committee on the Committee to Inform the Public. And this is part of our charter that came out later, seeking mechanism to encourage or facilitate public outreach by APS members. So this thing, it was an ad hoc committee for several years. Bo was the chair of it. Then I took over the committee, and then we finally, it's now a standing committee in the American Physical Society. And you can see that part of this is to try to make sure that we get all the members, as many as we can, to be engaged in these activities. Then out of that committee on informing the public, we generated this new forum, the Forum on Outreach and Engaging the Public. And this is not written in firm language. This is my take on it. But what the question is, how can we show the public physics? And I'll say science, because, for instance, when I go to Washington, I never talk about funding for physics research. I talk about it for all of science, all of engineering, and I'll even say NIH. If you look in terms of the gross domestic product, NIH has not been really treated royally. They're flat in terms of the GDP, so they've been treated adequately so far. So, but we want to say that science is interesting, fun, and understandable. Right? Those are the three parts of this. How can we show the public physics or science impacts their lives in a very positive way? And how can we teach them about the scientific method and help them use it in their daily lives? This is part of the critical thinking process, right? And again, you don't have to do this with equations. You can do it where conceptually they understand this whole procedure and process. So, basically, never be afraid to try something new. Remember, amateurs built the Ark, experts built the Titanic. But there's a piece of this that scares me because I've seen this happen time and time again. The first rule is do no harm. And if you get all your colleagues out there knocking on doors and doing things, there's going to be a lot that do a lot of harm. Okay, so I have seen this. I'm not going to even give you things anecdotal, but there's some people that can do it and some that can't. Or let me put it differently: some that should do it and some that shouldn't be doing it. We'll do it that way. So that's where we are with this. Now let me turn this to something that we've been doing. This is a program at the University of Minnesota, and we advertise it as Physics for Ages 6 to 106. And it's had our MERSEC, which I'm a member, has given support. APS has done money for it, provided support for it during the World Year of Physics. We had a book publisher that came in, brought in a film crew to do a DVD of our program. And the genesis started in 1984. Phil Johnson, this is Phil, met two high school teachers at an AAPT show. And then Jack Netlin and I joined the experiment later. And we developed 6 theme shows during this. E&M, fluids, heat, there they are listed. And we start with something extremely simple and small, and we weave a thread that builds on it and makes it more complex and allows them to actually see the development of the physics, of the science that goes on. And I was amazed at the impact. I read reports that came back from the high school students that saw these shows that actually grasped the whole thing. They were looking at the forest instead of trees after the program. It was excellent. And then unfortunately Phil died, and he was a key member of this, and so we quit doing these theme shows. So I actually have videotapes of them before I've been editing them to see if I can find some way to recover them. But think about it in terms of Peter and the Wolf. It's a story that we hear. We hear the story, and you can understand what's going on. And we want to be able to do the same thing by sequencing the physics demonstrations to teach the conceptual physics without saying very much. Let the demos do the work for you. And that's what they were. Our most popular show is this physics circus I talked about. Circus is fast-paced. We do about 30 demonstrations in an hour, 6 segments, and each one of those segments is a theme that runs through it. And again, it's to be able to provide a view of the forest rather than individual trees. And there's lots of humor, and it's sophomoric humor. It's slapstick. There's lots of humor that goes on. I lick a toilet plunger in part of this thing. Okay, so it gets pretty bad. So, and for instance, the 2D motion segment. There's 6 demonstrations that we lead through to do this. This, for those of y'all that teach physics, this is the monkey and the hunter demonstration, except we do it live with the guy up. This is Hank up a gantry 20 feet in the air. Now I figure this is a colloquium that I've given, and then I've edited it down, and then I've inserted the other stuff about the APS programs. So I'm not going to show you this one, but I'll show you. There we go. This should be it. Nope, I want to go to the next one. You don't want to see me. Let's see if the sound. Ah, shoot. Okay, the sound's not working. So what Hank is saying, he's talking about how this experiment is perfect because if gravity grows, then when the cannonball leaves the end of the barrel, the ball gets pulled down faster, but he falls faster, he'll catch you on the way. If gravity is weakened, the ball drops slower, he drops slower, he catches the ball. If there's no gravity, he just stays still, the ball gets fired and comes straight to him. Nothing can go wrong with this demonstration. That and nothing can go wrong with this. With him up there is what always gets the big laugh from the kids. Clearly, he's more elaborate than I am. I gave you all the Cliff's Notes version. And we've all made the drop. But let me tell you, when you're 20 feet up in the air, you're hitting a little rubber pad. It doesn't look good. Now we'll do it again in slow motion, just so that you can see this.
Did we turn the headlights off? The headlights off?
So here it is. And every time we made a new demo, what we learned in these things was amazing. For instance, when we first did this, the first time we tried it out, we were setting it all up, and I forget who it was, the first one that dropped. But we decided, okay, we're not going to shoot the cannon right at you. We're going to shoot it off to the side. And it was so important that we did that because when a ball is coming towards you, you judge its position by the arc in the ball. When you're falling at the same rate it is, it's just coming straight at you. And the only thing is that in the last 4 or 5 feet, it's noticeably getting bigger. But until then, you don't have any idea how far away it is. Okay. This tells you a little bit about the history, but we played in Epcot Center a couple of years. We've been on the Knopf show in Germany, Newton's Apple, Minnesota performances, colleges, K-12, prisons. We performed in Stillwater Prison. In the last 5 years alone, over 180,000 students have seen this. Now, when I started this back in '84, if I had told anybody I was doing physics demonstrations, they would have said, you quit doing research, didn't you? So I told no one. It wasn't until NSF made it a requirement to do outreach that I ever told anybody I was doing this stuff. Until then, it was a secret. But we've had, in the years we've done this, we probably had, sometimes I'll be in the grocery store or something and kids will recognize me, right? So it's sort of amazing because we've had about 10% of the people in the state that have seen us, right? One of these shows. And you're sort of known everywhere, okay? The other thing that was important in this is that now, after Phil died, was that everybody is from K-12 except me, which makes it a tremendous outreach to the K-12 community. The university is no longer this aloof, stuffy place, right? You're actually doing things collaboratively with the people at the university. And now this one, we did this. So that's a barrel that we fill with steam and we collapse it by condensing the steam. We've done this, I don't know how many times, and until we had a camera, we never understood what was going on. The question is, the barrel always falls off the stand, but sometimes the bottom is perfectly flat. Why does it always fall off the stand? And it wasn't until we looked at the slow motion finally that it suddenly dawned on us. If you look, when it collapses around the center of mass. When it collapses around the center of mass, the bottom pops up off the bottom, right? So it's not sitting on there all the time. This collapses around the center of mass and then falls. Okay, we don't need this. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not going to worry about this part. So this is another quote from Phil Johnson. So one does not have to be a concert pianist to enjoy classical music, nor a physicist to appreciate the beauty of the natural physical laws that are part of everyday life. And this is what we've tried to do through here, in the program. Like I say, we have people from retirement homes that we have come in. For our public shows, we've had audiences as many as 4,000 people, adults, come in to watch our program. Now, when we first started doing this, it was, we stole money to do this, so nobody supported it. And then we did it for inauguration of Mark Udolph, who became president of the university, because they had heard about us. And of course, I had Mark come up on the stage, do some of the demos with us. And then the next week, I had a proposal on his desk to get money for it. So he had no money. he started doing it. And part of it, in the funding, I wanted to develop another group so that I could get out of this, which I have now. And the other part was that this thing was, the original force was 5 white guys, right? Which was in Minnesota it fit in fine, but we thought we could do better than this. So I also got money to put together a different group, and you can see this other group has a little bit more variety than what the original group was. And so this is the group that's taking over now as I step down. Now, whenever we did this, I like to tell people that we were doing Broadway. It was all live performances except for the DVD that you can buy. And then somebody said, "Hey, have you seen that you're on YouTube?" And I said, "No." And so people in the balcony and stuff in the theater when we did this would videotape us and then put them up on YouTube. So we average 35,000 people a year see one of our shows from the state of Minnesota. And for those 35,000, these lousy quality YouTube videos, they were getting 80, 90,000 people. So I thought, okay, we've been doing Broadway, we need to do Hollywood. And so whenever I quit this, I have this new program going called Punk Physics, and I actually have a deal with the local TV station, with Channel 2 public broadcast. If we ever get these things finished, these are 3-minute vignettes is what we have planned out, that where we're punking somebody, where we shock them with the physics, right? And you get the audience reaction and everything else. And so that's sort of trivial, but they'll be able to go to a website to see deeper answers and things like this. Trouble is getting support for this. One of the things, it turns out, just to give you an example, turns out that you take a rubber sheet this big, and you just stick it on a surface, and if you pull it up, it pulls a vacuum inside. So how much could I lift by just taking a rubber sheet about that big? How much could I lift, put it on something, and see how much weight I can lift? I can lift a car. Okay? Now the trouble is, we did this, and the problem is with the car, it wasn't as compliant as. I just stuck it on the. You'll see. I started out by using 2, so I over-engineered it, right? Big ones, so that we wouldn't have any troubles. And you can lift it up, and even all the way at the front of the, even all the way at the front, it's not balanced. And see, they start slipping back because there's nothing holding them, right? So they just slide across the top of the car. So I had to take the trunk, and we put about 500 pounds of sand in the trunk to do it again. And you'll see the next round it's a lot better. So I just have enough of the clip to show you the sand going in. But what I want to do is to get the car and actually get it so that we can use just a single rubber sheet, paint it up with the University of Minnesota, and then go to the football games, right? And have people lift the car, and then while the car's in the air, you just take the rubber sheet and just peel it up a little bit, and the car falls, right? So these are the things we want to do. Also, one of the other projects that I have to get is I want to collapse a milk truck. So anyway, that's another story. So they wouldn't, actually, I was going to ride the car, they won't ever. See, now it's lifting more symmetric. This has got about 500 pounds of sand in the trunk. So it's still slipping. And you can see now, if you, get out of the way. Okay. Anyway, you can see the, never mind. You can see the top where it's all buckled and everything now. After I lifted it, it's not strong enough. It wasn't made to be lifted like that. Anyway, okay, with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah, have you seen an increase in physics declared majors, or?
Actually, I don't think, who knows?